Yeah, this is all very nostalgic, but definitely not as memorable as the in-game sound itself. I'm more used to... hold on, let me find a clip. There we go. That's the deafness I'm used to. Yes, the sounds of war! Alright, well, enough of that. Sorry for headphone users. The first Call of Duty came out in 2003, and the most interesting thing about it is that it was only on PC, Mac, and the N-Gage? Well, you learn something new every day, I guess. But the point is, I think most people associate Call of Duty with console gaming, or at least it seems to be the case now. Anytime a Call of Duty game releases on PC, the player base is considerably smaller than it is on console. And we can speculate all day long why this is, but, you know, it doesn't really matter. Point is, back when this game first came out, the only way you were going to play it is if you had a computer, or an N-Gage apparently. If it wasn't obvious by the cover art or the intro, this takes place during World War II, and it's pretty awesome. What I like to say is that Call of Duty 1 is the best World War II Call of Duty, and Call of Duty 4 is the best modern Call of Duty. I often consider both these games to be the best games in the series, but I can't put one over the other because they're two different games in my eyes. This game spans 3 different factions, so you got the United States, the British, and then the Soviets. The load screens change, the main menus change, and the briefings change depending on who you're playing as. I think the most interesting is the British. Not only is their load screen cool looking, but also their briefings are awesome. Before each mission, typically you get like a little slip of paper or something like that, where it's detailing what you're going to be doing. As the British, you get your detailed outline, and then as the mission goes on, or there's a new day, you can see where your character scribbled out certain sections and was telling it like it is. That's not how things are going. This is how it's going. This is how things have changed. This is what we're going to do now. It's quite awesome, and I just love that tiny detail. Before I continue, and before I forget, I should say that the multiplayer still works. I played in a somewhat modded server, and it was okay. I definitely don't remember the first Call of Duty for its multiplayer, but you know, it was fun for a match or two, even though I think this server was going on forever, judging by the time at the bottom. When you start the game, you're greeted with a tutorial that's pretty standard for the early 2000s. Basically, this is how you use your gun, this is how you crouch. It's boot camp. And you don't really see this anymore. Most tutorials are more immersive. They tell you as you go. And because of the standardization of controls, they don't really hold your hand anymore. I think these tutorials are great for first-time players, but I'm glad they're not around anymore. I try to blaze through this as quick as I can because I know what to do. Wish it was skippable, but thankfully it's short. The first mission is D-Day, but you're not storming the beaches. Instead, you're parachuting in behind enemy lines. And it's one of the most memorable opening missions of any Call of Duty that I can think of. Graphics of this game hold up pretty well, even if the animations are a little weird and stiff. And it's very challenging, and it's a rewarding kind of challenging. When you actually complete the objective, you feel like you did something. You feel like you're gaining ground. And there's something that I really appreciate about this, is the fact you got AI teammates. Like, I understand that the AI is pretty garbage in most games, but at least you have AI buddies with you, so it feels more like a war experience. What happens in a shooter sometimes is you're by yourself, and you're this one-man army, and so it's nice to have more troops with you, and to have a more immersive experience. Later on in the game, especially in the British part, there's a lot of sections where you're by yourself, and it kind of goes back to that more gamey, you're by yourself, one-man army, superhero type deal. But for the most of the game, the majority of it, you're with a group of soldiers, and it's quite nice. The American campaign is your standard, go take this town, go do this, go do that. It's all about pushing forward and getting a foothold in Nazi-occupied territories. There is some ridiculous moments, like the part where you're driving in a car and shooting out the window trying to get a message to another company. Completely outrageous, but you know what? I'm okay with it. Like it's a nice change of pace, I suppose, and it's definitely a memorable mission. Once the American campaign's over, the British starts, and I think the first 2 British levels are my favorite in the entire game. First, you have to take a bridge, then you have to defend it. It's very intense, it's very frustrating, and it's very fun. This is kind of what I remember from playing this game as a kid, is this British mission. And I remember thinking, wow, why is the magazine sticking straight out of this LMG? I played this game as a kid. I think my dad brought it home, and I still have my personal copy. And I just remember being amazed by this game, by the sound and everything. At the beginning when I blew the ears off headphone users, well, this game is very loud, and I think it adds to it. It's kind of like Medal of Honor Frontline Assault on the original Xbox and PS2 and GameCube. The sound really sells the fact that you're in a war. It's amazing, and I think sound's half the reason why these games are so awesome. After the bridge mission, it's more about being covert, being a spy, and infiltrating things. It's definitely not as cool as the American missions and the beginning of the British campaign, but I see what they were trying to do, and again, it's a nice change of pace. It keeps things dynamic. You're not doing the same thing over and over again. And then the Soviet campaign starts. You're on a boat, getting shot at, told that you need to charge, and then when you get off the boat, you don't even get a gun, you just get a handful of ammo, and you have to run around, and you can't take one step back or else you get shot up. A sniper guy kills one of his own guys so you can get a better position so you can progress. You watch your friends get gunned down with a machine gun, and then you have to run forward and hopefully pick up a gun along the way. It's crazy. The opening of the Soviet campaign is absolutely intense. And that's a trend you'll see with the original Call of Duty, is that the opening to the campaigns are definitely the best part of each campaign. The Soviet campaign is a very, very good example of this. I hate the Soviet campaign. And what's funny is when I decided to review this game, I reviewed it because I don't really see it covered a whole lot, or at least the people I subscribe to doesn't cover it a whole lot. And I don't really hear many people talk about it. Usually it's about World at War, Modern Warfare 1, 2, and 3, the original Black Ops. When I was thinking about playing this game, I was like, okay, I played this a lot growing up. I remember the credits. I remember how there's like a scene that plays out. You can kind of watch it as the credits go. It's definitely a better credit crawl than most. I'm looking at you, Far Cry 3, where it's just a boat sailing off in the distance. But I couldn't remember how I got there. And I remembered the beginning of the Soviet missions, but I couldn't remember the middle. And that's because they're absolutely dreadful. There's just one sequence. It's a very popular moment in history where you got to take a house. It's not important. What's important is that it's the most annoying mission in the entire game. You have to take the house one. And there's a lot of enemies, and your AI buddies are useless. Once you do take that house, you have to defend it for a certain amount of time. You got tanks coming, so you have to use anti-tank rifles to take them out. But oh no, all your buddies are dead or dying, so you're getting shot in the back because you're using them. And if you try to stay in one spot and try to, cheat it, you're going to get grenades thrown at you, or the tanks are going to shoot at you and blow the walls away. So you really got to take out the tanks and keep the enemies in the house at bay. And you can't eliminate them all because they'll just infinitely respawn. You kill two more arrive. So you got to somehow manage it to where you keep your health up and you manage to stay alive and complete level and wait for reinforcements to arrive. But when reinforcements arrive, it's not necessarily over, so don't die or else you got to do it all over again or reload whatever quick save you had or whatever checkpoint you had. It's absolutely miserable and definitely the worst part of the Soviet campaign. Oh man, I was getting so mad to the point that I lived with my fiance and she was yelling across from the other room, "If you smack your table one more time and yell again, I'm going to make you play a different game." Because she says I was acting like a child, an angry, angry child. And I probably was, looking back on it. But once you get past that, the game isn't a walk in a park again. It's your standard stuff. And then you get to drive tanks. Woo. It's the only time you get to drive a tank in the whole game. And like all the Call of Duties that follow it, there's a variety of famous voices in this game. There's Steve Bloom, Jason Statham, and Giovanni Ribisi. I never actually understood how you said his last name, so I'm going to say Ribisi. I'm probably not doing this game any justice with this review, so I highly recommend you check it out. Unfortunately, Activision keeps the price pretty high, even during sales, even though this game is close to being 2 decades old. But, if you find a copy, you find a copy. I played the Steam version. I do have the CD-ROMs, different editions and stuff, but it was just easier to play the Steam version. It works on modern OSs, as far as I can tell. I didn't have any bugs. Actually, I didn't have any bugs. That's kind of rare for the games that I review. And if you want me to dig up some more cons so it doesn't sound 100% biased, then I guess short campaign, I suppose. I guess I could really nitpick and Say there's not a whole lot of weapons, but it's World War II. There's no bot multiplayer. I don't know. I think this game is close to being a masterpiece, especially for the time. A time when shooters were very popular, gaining popularity, and they were nice, they were linear, and they didn't have any gimmicks. There is no weird RPG mechanic. There's no loot boxes or crates or anything like that. The story's very simple and straightforward and tries to be somewhat historical. I don't know. I think this game deserves being in one of the top 100 games of all time. And that's a bold claim considering how many games are out there. But I just think it's close to a masterpiece. It and Call of Duty 4 both. Highly recommend. And I thank you all for watching and listening to me rant about a beloved game of mine. And even though I talked it up, I'm going to go play something else. Because I need to cool down after that horrible Soviet mission that I never, ever, ever want to do again. Also, it's important to point out that the M1 Garand is the best weapon in the game, and solely for that sweet, sweet ping.